our diagnostic odyssey to Hav's diagnosis probably started sometime around when she was 10 or 11 months old. That in hindsight, we started to notice that she was having a harder time doing things and wasn't maybe making as much progress as we thought. But we didn't have anything to compare to. She was our first, and she was amazing. Like, she was so strong and so sweet. And in hindsight, all these things that she did, given her diagnosis, were just remarkable. I'm in awe. But it came to a head at her 12-month appointment with her pediatrician. And we marched in there that day not really worried about too much, to be honest. And she went through her exam and, asked us a bunch of questions and said that she was a little bit concerned about a few things that Hav wasn't doing. She wasn't pulling up to stand. She wasn't babbling very much. She hadn't said mama or dada at that point. And she reassured us that this is really common. Developmental delay is a thing that is seen a lot in pediatrics, and there are great resources for it with early intervention and lots of other supportive services. And she made a referral to neurology and to orthopedics and to early intervention, which we started all with vigor. That was in September of 2019. And we proceeded to put Hav through like the most rigorous early intervention, 2-a-day, PT, OT, play group, poor thing. And she just took it all, did it all without really complaining or crying or fussing ever. And we saw neurology, we saw orthopedics. They both, I think, were so taken by her beauty and her energy and
presence.
The presence of her whole being, that they both said that they thought she would be fine. They see tons of kids with life-limiting illness and severe disabilities, and Hav was not one of them. And so we continued through the fall with this really intensive program. And it was right around Thanksgiving that Hav really wasn't making a whole lot of progress. And, there were days when we clung on to little things that she had done that we thought maybe she was making some advancements. And around Thanksgiving, we ended up going to see another pediatric neurologist who is a developmental specialist. And she spent about an hour with us, did a really thorough exam, and told us at the end of that exam that Hav had cerebral palsy, which was devastating. And she referred us to neurogenetics because Hav's birth story was tremendously uncomplicated and very normal. And we ended up seeing neurogenetics the next week after that visit. And he sat down on the floor with Hav, and I unzipped my jacket, and Hav startled, and he asked about that. And Mai said, she's been startling for a while, but our pediatrician told us it was sensitive hearing and that a lot of kids have it. And he sort of noted it and continued with his exam, which was hard for us to watch because she was not doing so many of the things. And then he asked if we had been screened for Tay Sachs. And we almost laughed at him at that point and said, oh yeah, Myra was a carrier and I wasn't. And he noted that as well. And then he recommended that we get some additional genetic blood testing and have some additional tests run and have an MRI to get some imaging of the brain. And the day after the MRI, actually the afternoon of the MRI, I went back to his office to pick up some blood tubes for us to have blood samples drawn. And I checked in at the front desk, and the nurse paged him, and he came out to the front, and he said, "Can you come back into my office for a minute?" Which I knew at that moment was a bad sign. And he sat me down in the chair and pulled up the MRI results on his computer screen and pointed to these like very classical findings of Tay Sachs disease. And the rest was a little bit of a blur. I don't really remember leaving. But I got back in the car. My sister-in-law was waiting in the car and drove me back home. And I came into the house, and Mai was on the phone in our bedroom, and I told her what the doctor had said, and she screamed, and and said she's gonna die. And we got the confirmatory blood test the next day. Yeah, we were shattered. Like, our whole world was shattered.